It was a battle of diaper dandies between Rutgers and Illinois, and Dylan Harper made sure his team finally earned themselves a ranked win.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, folks? Happy Thursday, and welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host for today's show, Andy Patton, and you are joining at the place to get your college basketball content Monday through Saturday, 6 days out of the week, as we have our new Locked On Game Night show live on Saturday evenings with our good friend Leaf Tulane. Check that out if you have not done so yet. I want to thank all of you for making the show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Remind you all that you can listen to this show ad-free on Amazon Music, and that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Folks, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Well, Rutgers did it. They got themselves a ranked win. The star freshman fully as advertised in this game. We're going to talk about that. Some other wildness in the SEC. Arkansas, John Calipari, they got a win. Wasn't quite as comfortable as it looked like it was going to be, but they did get a W. We'll talk about that. Creighton also their 8th straight W in the Big East. And we'll close out with some previews for the Thursday night action. But we start with this game here. The Scarlet Knights of Rutgers beat the 23rd ranked Illinois Fighting Illini 82-73. The final score here, Rutgers, their first ranked win of the season. I believe 17 ranked wins for Steve Pikiell in his career. Scarlet Knights move up to 5-7 in the Big Ten. And the big story coming into this game was the battle of the freshmen. Obviously, every game that Rutgers plays is going to have the focus be on the two superstar freshmen, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, projected by basically every outlet to go second and third in the 2025 NBA draft behind Duke superstar Cooper Flagg. But the reason this game had that extra intrigue is that one of the players many are projecting to go fourth in this draft, or if not fourth, fifth, sixth, somewhere in that range, is Kasparas Jakusionis, who plays, of course, for Illinois. So it was a fun matchup to see him going up against these two guys at Rutgers. You have Will Riley, another star freshman many expect to go in the first round or at least get selected in the upcoming NBA draft. And then star freshman big Timoslav Ivicic for Illinois as well. So we got this kind of fun matchup of a bunch of young players, a bunch of young freshmen, and Dylan Harper, who is widely expected to be second in the draft behind Flagg. He was the best player on the floor. He was the best player out of both these teams by a pretty considerable amount. He put this team on his back in the second half. They do not win without him. It was very clear. He played phenomenal. 28 points for Harper, 6 boards, 5 assists, and 4 steals. Just completely filled out the stat line. He was 7 of 15 in the game, 3 of 5 from 3. He was not a super efficient on those 2-pointers, but the way he creates space, the way he just is demands attention from opposing defenses because of his ability to change speed so quickly, his ability to get downhill, his ability to stop and look for other options. I mean, just phenomenal stuff from him. He also, when the team needed him to, at the end of the game, when it was a close game, he knocked down his free throws. He was 11 of 12 in this game. He made his first 10 before missing one late in the game, but phenomenal stuff from him. There was a play with about 6 minutes to go. I think the kind of summary of this game, Harper was flying out of bounds, trying to save the ball, kind of lost the ball in his hands, and while in midair, just kind of whipped the ball around his back, threw it back inbounds to a Rutgers teammate. They got down the floor. Bailey ended up getting the ball. Harper, after inbounding this ball, nearly landing on an Illinois player, turns, sprints back up the court, catches a pass from Bailey, perfectly in stride, drills a 3. It was just poetic basketball. It was so pretty to watch. The kind of stuff that you just see a player like that and you're like, oh, that he's not just a good college player. Like, you can tell why he has NBA scouts all over him at this point. And it's not like Ace Bailey was bad by any stretch. 18 points, 11 boards for him. He had 3 blocks and 2 assists. Pretty clear why those two guys are at the spot that they are. It was also fairly clear why Rutgers is not a great team. They had some teammates step up. Jeremiah Williams had a nice game, but they still struggle without much of a supporting cast. But they did enough to get past this Illini team. 28 of 34 from the free throw line certainly helped their cause in this one. Meanwhile, for Illinois, lost 4 of their last 6. Their only wins were both home games against Northwestern and Ohio State. More bad news, Ivicic, who had missed the last few weeks with a bad case of mono. He lost 15 pounds, had to work really hard to gain back the weight in order to get back on the floor. Unfortunately, he rolled his ankle in the second half of this game, did not return. We're recording not long after the game is over, so no update on his situation at this point, but we hope that he can return healthy for Illinois here in the near future. Will Riley, great game for him, 20 points off the bench, but it was an off night for the other star freshman, Jakusionis. Just 5 points for him, 3 turnovers and 4 fouls. He was 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, 3 of 5 from the line. I think a lot of people who follow the NBA draft, a lot of people who just watch their team trade away a lot of players in the NBA and are thinking, oh, we're going to get a top 5 pick. Let's watch this game, see what we're thinking. They're maybe not going to have a super high opinion of KJ because he didn't have a great game. He's a great player, just was not there for him today. Clearly the worst of these 4 kind of one and done freshmen that are being discussed in this game, but still a high level prospect, just didn't get it done in this game. And had he had one of his more typical games, the result might have been a little different for Illinois, who now they go at Minnesota for the next game. Then they host UCLA, Michigan State, at Wisconsin, and then Duke. This was a tough stretch here for the Illini. That's why they got to hope Ivasic is healthy, see if they can get back on track, but this is not going to be an easy time for the Illini. Other game in the Big Ten to talk about, 24th ranked Michigan hands Oregon their 4th straight loss, 80-76, the final in Ann Arbor for this one. The Wolverines now 9-2 in the Big Ten. Will Shatter had 17 off the bench on 6 of 9 shooting. Those were the only bench points for the Wolverines, but that was still enough for them to get it done. Danny Wolf 15 and 12 along with 2 blocks. Vlad Golden had 15 and 6. He also had a pair of blocks, and he was a very solid 6 of 7 from the field. Michigan, again, now 9-2 in the Big Ten. They're at Indiana in their next game before hosting Purdue, going at Ohio State, hosting Michigan State, their rival, and then going at Nebraska, trading off here for them in the Big Ten. Meanwhile, Oregon, really strange resume for Oregon at this point. They're 5-7 in the Big Ten. They've lost 4 in a row, yet they are second in the country in quad 1 wins. Auburn is first. Auburn's 13-1 in quad 1 games. Their resume is just ridiculous at this point. Yet Oregon has 8 quad 1 wins. That's the most in college basketball behind Auburn. That kind of resume makes them feel like they're like a 4 seed, maybe a 5 seed, but they're 2 games below 500 in the Big Ten. Obviously, still plenty of basketball to be played. For the Ducks, they're at Michigan State next. Then they host Northwestern. Then they host Rutgers. Then they're at Iowa. Obviously, that Michigan State game is going to be very difficult, but the other 3 are all winnable games for the Ducks. If you go 3-1 in that stretch, obviously 4-0 even better, you're in a good spot. But if you're 2-2, if you're 1-3, it's going to be interesting to see how the committee eventually determines what they want to do with Oregon if this is a team that truly does finish below 500 in conference play. There is one more game in the Big Ten, but I am recording as it is happening. Washington was up 10 at halftime against Nebraska, but Nebraska's gone on a 10-2 run to start the second half. It's a 2-point game. I'm going to watch it at the end of this here, but hopefully it'll be a fun finish for y'all. These are 2 teams that are not nearly very high in the standings here in the Big Ten. UW 2-8 as this game is going on. Nebraska 4-7. We'll see if Fred Hoiberg's team can pull off the comeback here and pick up a win over an outmatched Huskies team. Well, the Vols picked up a nice win over Mizzou, while John Calipari in Arkansas nearly blew a 24-point lead at home against Texas, but they did get it done to win their 2nd straight game for Arkansas. We're going to talk about that. Other results in the SEC all coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, are you looking for tickets for your next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sporting event? Finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Gametime Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Gametime Picks, the app does all of the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste your time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Gametime Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. Not only does it show you only the best deals, the app has a view from your seat feature so you can see exactly what your view is going to look like on game day. And the best part, you're covered with Gametime's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your ticket is guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Are you ready to make your next event even better? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still here on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. We talked Big Ten in the first segment. We're going to talk some SEC here in the second segment. We had 3 games going on in the best basketball conference in the country this year, one of them being the only ranked-on-ranked matchup of the day. Tennessee, the 4th-ranked Vols, hold off Mizzou, Dennis Gates' very, very strong Missouri club, 15th ranked in the country. Tennessee wins this one by 4, 85-81. The Vols up to 6-4 in the SEC. Mizzou, 6-3, still a great record in conference play, even with the loss here. Mizzou was up 6 at halftime. Tennessee took a lead fairly early in the second half, and then a late 9-1 surge by Mizzou got this thing real close. It was tenuous. It looked like they might pull off a stunner, beat this Tennessee team, and really establish themselves as potentially a top 10 team next week in the standings. But unfortunately for them, fortunately for Rick Barnes' club, they were able to get it done. Thanks in large part to star guard Zakai Ziegler, 21 points for him. He had 8 assists. He was 5 of 9 from the field. That included a perfect 4 of 4 from the 3-point line and 7 of 7 from the charity stripe. Meanwhile, transfer big Igor Milicic, great game for him as well. 21 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, and 4 blocks. He was 8 of 10 from the field, including 2 of 3 from 3. And in fact, both these teams just ridiculously scorching hot from 3. Mizzou was 12 of 30. That's 40%. 18 missed threes is a lot for this Missouri team, but 40% from 3 and 12 made threes, that's a good day. But it's nothing compared to what Tennessee did. Tennessee 10 of 15 from 3, 66%. To make 10 threes in a game and only take 15 of them? Absurd. Absurdly ridiculous, scorching hot shooting from Tennessee. That will get it done every single time. Like we said, Ziegler was 4 of 4. Milicic was 2 of 3 in this game. The fact that Tennessee nearly lost a game where they shot 66% from 3 is shocking. Tennessee giving up 81 points, a little shocking. Again, credit to Missouri. This team did not win a game in a weaker SEC last year. This year, the SEC is stronger. It was good last year, but it is stronger this year. And this Missouri team is 6-3 in conference play, ranked 15th in the country, nearly took down a Tennessee had to score 85 points to beat them. Like, this is a one of the better stories in college basketball that is getting some run, but it's not necessarily getting as much attention as maybe as it should, considering how bad their season was last year. Next up for the Tigers, they got A&M and Oklahoma at home. They go on the road to take on Georgia. Then they host Bama. Then they're at Arkansas. No easy stretches for anybody in the SEC this year. For Tennessee, they're at Oklahoma, at Kentucky, host Vanderbilt, at A&M, at LSU, and then Bama. That is a lot of tough road games for the Vols. We'll see how they respond in this one. Arkansas coming up next, win at Texas, 78-70, an 8-point win for Arkansas in a game where they were projected to lose by as many as 8. Ken Pom had them as 8-point underdogs. So you flip that, you win by 8. 78-70 looks like a comfortable win. That's good stuff from Arkansas. Well, they were up 24 in this game at one point. They were up 10 at halftime, and then they went on a 10-0 run to start the second half, had a 20-point lead, got it up to 24, like we said, and Texas chipped away and chipped away and chipped away and got themselves in a position where they had this thing down within 5 at one point. There's a 12-0 run to get within 9. Then they chipped it down to 5. I think it was 69-64 after Jordan Pope hit a three-pointer with 51 seconds left. 5 points, I believe, was the closest it got. It's the closest I saw the score while watching it. And then Arkansas basically was able to make enough free throws. Texas had a critical turnover where Trey Johnson got the ball off a missed Zvonimir Ivasic free throw, had an opportunity to get down the floor and score, turned it over. Nelly Davis got the ball, ended up getting it to another player, to Wagner, got fouled. They converted at the stripe, and that basically did it. But really, really nice stuff from Arkansas. Obviously, you'd have liked to win this thing by 15 or 20 when you were up by that many, but you still got the W. You still fought through some adversity towards the end of the game. You still won 2 in a row in a season where you didn't have a win in the SEC for a while. You've won 3 out of your last 4. You won that game against Georgia, and now you've beat Kentucky at Rupp, and now you beat Texas at Texas. That's a great stretch of basketball for John Calipari's club. Arkansas hangs on 3-6 in the SEC, and Nelly Davis was huge in this game. He has been such a problem this year. Every article you're going to read on anywhere, worst transfer portal pickups of the offseason, like transfers who are struggling, blah, blah, blah. John L. Davis is going to be on every single one of those lists. And it's probably pretty painful that the lists on the flip side of the best transfers are probably going to include his teammates Elijah Martin at Florida and Vlad Golden at Michigan. But Davis gets it done in this one, 24 points, 5 boards, 4 steals, and 2 assists. He was 4 of 8 from 3, made all 4 of his threes in the second half. He was also 6 of 6 from the line, a calming presence in this game. Really, his ability to take care of the ball, hold on to the basketball and get fouled and converted the stripe in the last minute really helped Arkansas win this basketball game. When they're playing mostly freshmen outside of him, it was nice to have that veteran presence to help get this thing done for the Hogs. Big Z had a nice game as well, 9 points, 12 boards, 4 blocks. Arkansas was 7 of 17 from the three-point line. They were also 27 of 35 from the stripe. That helped them get it done. And this has been a topic of conversation, especially in the last couple of games. After Boogie Fland went down with that injury, which we found out was a season ender, a tough blow for Fland, a tough blow for this Arkansas team. John Calipari, and he said it, he didn't say this in a derogatory way at all, but he basically said, it's possible we're going to be better because he has so many ball-dominant players. John L. Davis, ball-dominant player who was trying to kind of adjust to this off-ball role and was not doing good at it. DJ Wagner, on-ball player, struggles, is not really useful off the ball because he's not a great three-point shooter. And so when Fland goes down, and again, nothing against Boogie Fland, he averaged 16 and 6 before going down with the injury. He was great, truly great player. But it does look like Arkansas's offense is a little bit more free-flowing, a little bit less kind of bogged down by having these on-ball dominant players playing off-the-ball roles, which just was not working for this team, like we say. Nelly Davis has a great game here. Wagner had a good game. Like, these guys got it done. And we've now seen that multiple games in a row for Arkansas. So the Fland injury may actually be a little bit of a boost for this Arkansas team in terms of being able to better fit the pieces together for Coach Calipari's offense. Meanwhile, Texas, they dropped to 4-6 in conference play. Trey Johnson, 25 points for him, but he was 6 of 22 shooting. He was 3 of 9 from 3. Arthur Kaluma had another double-double, 12 points, 13 boards, but he was also 3 of 11 from shooting, 0 of 3 from 3. And then Tremont Mark. This is the problem for Texas. He didn't even score in this game. He was only 0 of 2. He had 4 fouls, was on the bench most of the game with foul trouble, only takes 2 shot attempts, doesn't even score. Just a huge problem. Texas doesn't have the depth to withstand one of their better players not scoring in a game. Now, they did have a good game from Julian Larry off the bench. He had 11 points. So, hey, they got that. But they don't have enough depth to withstand a star player having a bad game like that. And that ended up burying them in this game against the Hogs. Last game in the SEC on Wednesday, Georgia absolutely took it to LSU, 81-62, the final here. The Bulldogs were up 37-31 at halftime, but outscored the Tigers 44-31 in the second half. They're now 4-6 in the SEC. Georgia is. Meanwhile, LSU falls to 1-8. Yikes. Been kind of talking about South Carolina as the worst team in the SEC, especially now with Arkansas getting a few wins. But LSU has really not gotten off to a strong start in conference play. Shout out Asa Newell, Bulldogs star freshman, 17 points for him. He had 4 boards and a block. He was 6 of 10 from the field. Blue Kane almost had himself a triple-double as well for Georgia, 10 points, 10 boards, and 8 assists. Nice performance for him as Georgia moves up to 4-6 in conference play. Well, folks, Creighton, they got their 8th straight win thanks to a huge game from Ryan Kalkbrenner. We're going to talk about that, a few other results from Wednesday, and then close it out with some previews for Thursday night's action, all coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, the big game is almost here, and there is no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes, he only needs to throw 1 yard, and you win if you pair that with 1 more correct pick. So I put $15 down on Travis Kelce to score a touchdown and Jalen Hurts to have a rushing touchdown. If both those things happen, I win $52 just like that. And here's what I love most. With fast, safe withdrawals, when I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. So check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie Winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still locked on college basketball, still doing some recaps of all the action from Wednesday night, and then we'll get to some previews for Thursday as well. We'll talk about some Big East games here. Creighton goes to the dunk, wins at Providence 80-69. They pulled away in the final 4 minutes. It was a pretty close game throughout. Providence never really let Creighton get a big lead. It was like a 4 to 6 point game after the majority of the contest, and then Creighton was able to pull away in those last few minutes. Providence, a couple of turnovers, a couple of big shots from the Blue Jays, and suddenly it was a 10-point game and finished with an 11-point margin. The Blue Jays now 10-2 in the Big East. They have 8 straight wins, and once again, they were carried by their top two, Stephen Ashworth and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Kalkbrenner in particular, 35 points for him in this game. He had 12 boards, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. He was 13 of 23 from the field. He was 7 of 10 from the charity stripe. Meanwhile, Stephen Ashworth had 23 points, 6 assists, 6 boards. He was 7 of 15, knocked down 3 of his 9 3-point attempts. The rest of the team collectively for Creighton, just 22 points, 7 of 27 shooting, including 3 of 17 from 3. So Kalkbrenner 35, Ashworth 23, everybody else 22. That's going to be a problem that catches up with Creighton. Obviously, the loss of Pop Isaacs to a season-ending injury a few months ago really hurting this team that already had some depth concerns, especially with Fedor Zugic at the time not eligible. He's eligible now, but he still looks a little lost. He didn't have a great game for this team at this point. They have other guys like Isaac Trout and Mason Miller who just aren't really score-first guys. Jemiah Neal's been good, and he was solid in this game, but this is going to be a team that struggles if Ashworth and Kalkbrenner both score more than every other player on the roster combined. And it's not about to get easier. 8-game winning streak for Creighton, very much in jeopardy. Their next game's home against Marquette, home against UConn, at St. John's. This is when you really prove it for Greg McDermott and the Blue Jays. Meanwhile, Providence falls to 5-7 in conference play. They've lost 4 of their last 6. They shot it well from 3, 42% from 3, but they only made 4 free throws on 6 attempts, while Creighton made 18 free throws. When you're at home and the other team makes 14 more free throws than you, that is a problem every single time. Corey Floyd led this team 16 points, 10 boards. Elsewhere in the Big East, Villanova beats DePaul 59-49. Pretty hideous scoring game from both teams here. DePaul, 7 of 36 from the free throw line, 19.5%. If you're just not knocking them down, you might not need to start trying to find another way to score for DePaul. Only 2 of 5 from the free throw line. You shoot under 20% from 3, you shoot and you make 2 free throws in a game. The fact that you're even within 10 points is wild in this game. Nova, meanwhile, was much better from 3, 7 of 15. Same number of made threes on 21 less attempts for Villanova. They were also 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Up to 6-6 in the Big East at this point, while DePaul falls to 2-11. And then the last game in the Big East, Seton Hall lost their 8th straight game. They lost to Butler 84-54. This game was over before halftime. It has been a slog for the Pirates this year. I feel for this team. Shaheen Holloway is doing what he can with this roster, but there's not a lot of NIL money at Seton Hall. That's an off-discussed topic, and it just feels like this season is, I was going to say circle in the drain, but folks, it is already in the drain for Seton Hall. We'll see what happens with this team, but wow, 30-point loss to Butler is not going to get it done. No excuses for that. That is just a really pitiful effort here from the Pirates. Last game before we start some previews, TCU beats West Virginia 65-60. Both teams now 5-6 in the Big 12. We talked about this. Isaac and Leaf talked about this on Wednesday's show. Tucker DeVries done for the year for West Virginia. Devastating loss for them. He's been out for a while already with the injury, but now it sounds like it's confirmed it's going to be a season ender. Tucker, not only this team's second best player, second leading scorer, the son of head coach Darian DeVries, but just a really important player for this team. And they just don't have the horses without him. We saw that in this game. Javon Small was great. Javon Small just named the Bob Cousy Award watch list for the best point guard in college basketball. He looked the part. 20 points for him, 7 assists, 2 steals. He was 8 of 19 from the field, but the whole rest of his team had just 40 points in this game. They were 17 of 39. They're 4 of 20. Small was 4 of 10 from 3. The rest of the team was 4 of 20 from 3. Just not getting it done, not enough around him. We'll see if Hansberry and other guys can kind of pick up the slack, but this is a rough loss for a West Virginia team that's now below 500 in conference play. Shout out TCU, up to 5-6. They've been playing some good ball as of late. Vashon Alette had 22, 11, and 5. Noah Reynolds had 20 points on 6 of 9 shooting, including 2 of 3 from the 3-point line. All right, closing it out here with some previews for Thursday. Got one ranked team playing, I should say, on Thursday. We got a couple WCC matchups to talk about as well. Maryland, 18th ranked Terrapins going on the road to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes of Ohio State. This game is at 7 Eastern time on FS1. FanDuel favoring Ohio State in that one by 2.5. Terps on a 4-game win streak, though. They're now up to 7-4 in the Big Ten. Ohio State is just 5-6. They just lost their most recent game to Illinois on Sunday. I get why Ohio State's favored. They got a lot of talent. Obviously, Bruce Thornton's been great. Micah Parrish has been fantastic. But this game's going to be won in the front court. And Maryland's got the talent there. Derek Queen has been phenomenal as a freshman for this team. Julian Reese, phenomenal as a veteran guy for this team. Ohio State's front court is just not delivered. The high-level transfer portal additions of Sean Stewart and Aaron Bradshaw have been a bust for this team at this point. I think if Maryland can dominate on the glass, can dominate scoring around the rim, I have a hard time seeing Ohio State win this one, even if they're at home. Give me Maryland to win this one. Pick up a nice road W for the Terps. In the WCC, Sure Gonzaga's playing LMU. They're favored to win by that one by 20.5. We're going to talk about a few other games in the West Coast Conference. First up, St. Mary's at San Francisco. The Gales going to the Dons, 9 Eastern time. This will be on ESPN2. FanDuel favoring those Gales on the road by 6.5. St. Mary's hasn't lost. They are 10-0 in conference play. This is probably one of the toughest games. They're obviously going to Spokane still, so that'll be their toughest game. But this is one of the toughest games you can play in conference play. At San Francisco, obviously these two teams are very local to each other. Moraga and San Francisco not far away. There's going to be a lot of energy in the building here. San Francisco, a very good club. They don't have a Jonathan Mobo-like presence like they did last year in the front court, and they have a lot of issues rebounding the basketball. I think that's going to ultimately be the downfall for the Dons if they don't win this one, especially against a team like St. Mary's, who's the second best offensive rebounding team in the entire country. Mitchell Saxon is an absolute load. Paulus Morauskas, the transfer from Arizona, averaging like 17 and 8, something like that. Like, this is a really, really dangerous team in the front court for St. Mary's. Should be able to dominate against the Dons. Even with St. Mary's backcourt's great. Malik Thomas has been awesome. Marcus Williams has been coming around lately. But I think that this game is going to also come down to the front court. And I think St. Mary's, the road team, is going to have the major advantage there. And then this other classic WCC game, we always think of this West Coast Conference when we hear Washington State at Oregon State. This game at 11 Eastern time on ESPN2, right after that St. Mary's San Francisco game. FanDuel favoring the Beavers here by 7.5 because Washington State is in free fall right now. 4 straight losses in the WCC for the Cougars. They're down to 5-6 in conference play. I think they're in 7th place in the WCC. Injuries have just crushed David Riley's club. Cedric Coward went down with an injury a while ago, but they've had multiple other players go down. Isaiah Watts was down for a while, and they just have not been able to get a rhythm. They're having major turnover issues because many of the guys haven't played rotation minutes for this team this season. They're just having a hard time putting together a roster that can kind of play enough minutes together to look cohesive on the floor, and it's really been biting them lately. Meanwhile, Oregon State, they're 6-4 in conference play. They got a win over Gonzaga and Corvallis. They got a win over Santa Clara. They are a very good team at Gill Coliseum in Corvallis. They are a very bad team on the road. This is a home game for Oregon State against a floundering Washington State team that has not won in 2 weeks, that is, again, 0 of their last 4. I expect a raucous crowd on a Thursday night on an ESPN game in Gill against a team that Oregon State has been playing against. It's not like a non-rivalry like St. Mary's. It's a team they're familiar with. I expect that place to be rocking. I expect Oregon State to win this one. And I expect them to cover that 7.5 point spread for Wayne Tinkle and the Beavers. It's going to wrap it up for me today here on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Folks, thank you so much for making this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Special shout out to those everyday listeners. Isaac and I will be back with you all on Friday morning. We're going to recap the games on Thursday, and then we're going to get you ready for a big old fantastic weekend of college basketball on Saturday and Sunday. Check it out in your feeds live Friday morning. Thanks again, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. And until Friday, peace.